All right, participants are coming in. You can see that number at the bottom going up. Welcome, 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 everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're gonna let people in and then we'll get started. Maybe I should have chose some like entry music.
I was gonna start bebopping, but you know, the way my rhythm is set up, probably wasn't gonna look right or sound right.
Yeah, we should have played like We Are Family or something.
We are family.
So we'll give people one more minute to get in here. And hopefully most people who signed up know that when I say I'm gonna start at 6 o'clock, we're gonna start at 6 o'clock. Okay, so we'll give people one more minute to get in here.
The beautiful thing, guys, is we were hitting our sign-up goals. Yay! Now it's the participating goals.
Yeah, we're almost at 200 people, so let's see how many people, actually show up. But the numbers are climbing, so at 6:03, I'll go ahead and get started. All right, we got a few more seconds and we're gonna go ahead and get started, and hopefully people will just come on in and people will start to get their questions ready. Okay, all right, we are at the 6:03 mark, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So good evening, everyone. I am Darsha and Kendrick, the lead founder and CEO of the Dollar Empowered Community, or the DEC as we call it. It is a real estate syndicate that has an investment goal of raising money to purchase commercial real estate here in DeKalb County. I want to tell you welcome on behalf of all the founders that you're going to hear from later, as well as investors of the DEC. You'll hear from a few of them a little later on, but welcome to today's topic. It's such an important topic on investing in commercial real estate in our community. And we have a superstar lineup for you. So make sure you sit back, relax, ask questions, and then act, because none of this is gonna make any difference if we don't act after we are finished with all this good information. So please write down your questions, but make sure that you act on the good information that you have. So again, the Dollar Empowered Community is sponsoring this. You can go to www.dollaремpowered.com, and Shambrea will type that over in the chat so that you have that information, that website. But check us out. You'll hear a little bit more about us from our co-founders, but we invite you to join us on this journey towards building Black wealth through owning commercial real estate. A few housekeeping rules. So our runner show is you're going to hear a few more remarks from some of our co-founders. Then you'll hear from our wonderful investors who are going to introduce our moderator and panelists. And you're going to hear from our superstar panel, who are going to talk to you from everything from estate planning all the way down to community development and real estate and everything in between. So sit back and relax and just take in all this good knowledge. If you need to ask a question, you will see down at the bottom that there actually is a designated Q&A section to ask your questions. If you want us to see your questions in a timely manner, please use that Q&A to type your question. If you type it in the chat, we have to look through and sort through it. So please try to use that Q&A designated chat box. This will be recorded, and you will receive a follow-up email where we'll direct you to the website in case you want to get a copy of this recording or learn any more information about us. And so before I bring on our co-founders and realtors, Stacy and Amy, I just wanted to generally say that we are still in the middle of a raise. Many of you know we started this journey in May, and we cannot do this without you. The C in the Dollar Empowered Community and the deck is community. So without the community, we're not going to be able to move forward to invest into the commercial real estate property that we want. So we need all of you to get your friends and your family and everybody that you know, have them to check us out and then join us on this journey. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to my lovely co-founders, Amy and Stacy, who are superstar realtors, but also co-founders of the deck, the Dollar Empowered Community. So Amy and Stacy, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stacy Thibodeau, co-founder of the deck. You know, the pandemic last year brought this whole wealth gap to the forefront in a very interesting way. Black households were disproportionately affected by COVID, by the pandemic. And so it became a good time for us to bring an awareness to this and to get the deck started and to use the deck as a vehicle to bring a material awareness to the wealth gap in our community. The wealth gap isn't new. There's actually 3 decades of data that people have been keeping up with regarding this. Data like as late as 2020, Black Americans were constituted 14% of the nation's population, but possessed less than 3% of the nation's wealth. We now have in our deck community, we have over 40 community investors that are participating in wealth building for the first time. We believe that wealth provides families the means to invest in their children's education, start a business, relocate for new and better opportunities, buy a house, and even have greater participation in the democratic process. So tonight we invite you to sit back and listen to our panel of experts from the community as they discuss and talk about investing in our community. Amy.
Thank you. I am Amy McCoy. I am a co-founder and also a realtor, broker owner of my hometown realty group, and have serviced in multiple leadership roles on local, state, and national, and even international board committees. So the reason I got involved with the Dollar Empowered community was because I was tired of the same old in terms of what avenues as a Black person I can invest in that I would feel I would have an equitable stake in. And it be beyond just the normal residential properties. How do we, as a community in whole, have an opportunity to own commercial property? And what I learned is it's tough going at it by yourself, but collectively, I have an opportunity to join in with others and be able to build my wealth by joining in. Because it's not just about residential. Commercial is sometimes forgot about within our own communities. So that's another avenue that we explored in being able to say, if we're going to lift up our community, let's also think of this as an option. So I encourage everyone that's listening in tonight to really just listen, focus in on what you hear, listen to these experts. You're going to learn a lot. I know I'm going to learn a lot. I know quite a few of them on this call, and I do every time we talk. So stay tuned because it's all about to be shared now. Thank you. And Teresa?
All right. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Darshan and Ms. Edwina. My name is Teresa Hardy, and I am the co-founder and CFO of the Dollar Empowered community. My why for participating in the Dollar Empowered community was why not? I noticed that being in this community for 21 years, being a majority Black population. However, when we start looking at the books and notice that most of the property that's owned in DeKalb County was not owned by us or anybody that lived in Georgia. So when given the opportunity to come and invest in our community, I took it upon myself and said, yes, let's do it. No questions asked. I have been in DeKalb County for 21 years, and I too am tired of the same old, same old. It is time that we come out of this pandemic not the same. We can no longer do what we've been doing before. We should be transformed from this pandemic, and we are encouraging you to do the same thing. Today, you will hear from a great panel of experts, and we thank each of them for taking out their time to actually come and speak to us. This will show you that we didn't do this all alone, and we're not the only one talking this one game of investing in our community. You will now hear from other people who will give you that expert advice in investing in your community. So the call to action today is for you to listen to the knowledge, take great notes, and then act upon those notes by going to our website, www.dollarimpowered.com. You should invest now, because at the end of the month, we will now increase our raise to $7,500. Currently, it is $5,000, and that is minimal to the commercial real estate market. So if we can all just do our part and go to the website, www.dollarimpowered.com, we too will transform our community to what we want it to be. We got. Edwina?
Edwina, you're on mute.
Thank you, Teresa.
No problem.
I'm Edwina Clanton. I'm also a co-founder, real estate broker, and owner of East Metro Brokers, trying to lead with by example, like many of you. I sit on many boards in my community, so I can understand the needs of my community as well. I am here tonight to be a part of this group so that we can teach our young people what is possible in our community. I just believe that we've just been so far away from purchasing commercial property, and here we have the opportunity, and I'm grateful to be a part. I'm also here tonight to introduce to you a few of our investors we have already who will be participating in this webinar this evening. First, we have Dr. Janelle Henry, Ronald Mangrum, Sharon Turner, Danita Townsend, Sherry Lake, and Donna Cade. And again, I thank you for joining us. Please listen and learn, and go to our website, www.dollarimpowered.com. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from our investors.
Hello, I am Janelle Henry, and I am one of the investors. And I love that they asked us to tell our why, because my why for investing is because I love to invest in the Black community. I believe very much in corporate wealth and community concerns. And I love the fact that they don't talk about what we can do. We are actually offered the opportunity to do it. So in the words of my grandmother, don't just talk about it, be about it. So I am very excited for the opportunity to not just say that I believe in Black wealth, but to invest in that. So that is my why. But I'm here tonight to introduce to you Mr. Julian Pouncy. Mr. Pouncy is a professional financial advisor. He has over 26 years of financial services experience. He has 10 years as an underwriter and 16 years as a financial advisor. He has worked with such industry greats as Unum, The Hartford, Merrill Lynch, E-Trade, Prudential, AIG, and Northwestern Mutual. So in short, we can say that Mr. Pouncy is an expert in his field. He currently works with business owners and professionals, providing the services that he once worked with these major corporations. So offering those who are in their own business the opportunity of his expertise that he has used with very large corporations. So Mr. Pouncy, thank you so much for being involved.
Thank you, and I'm very happy to be here tonight.
Next, I'm going to introduce Mr. Ramon Tookes. Mr. Tookes attended Georgia State University, so I take it he's probably from the great state of Georgia. He also did his undergraduate law at Emory University. He has over 25 years of experience in real estate, and he is skilled at flipping houses, wholesaling, coaching, and due to his great involvement with over 1,000 real estate deals. He now shares his expertise and proven strategies through social media, including YouTube and Bigger Pockets. He founded Tookes Development in 2005, specializing in investment consultation. Thank you, Mr. Tookes, for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me tonight.
And now we'll hear from Mr. Ronald Mangum.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ronald Mangum. I am an investor in the deck. My why is that as a commercial construction professional, I often sat at the table listening to the deals, and this provided a great opportunity to be part of the deal. To do versus talk about it was to do it. I am also here tonight to introduce Mr. Keith R. Miles. Mr. Miles is the owner of the law office of Keith R. Miles, LLC. The firm handles estate planning and elder law matters throughout the states of Georgia and North Carolina. Mr. Miles received his JD from the University of Maryland School of Law and his LLM in taxation from the University of Alabama School of Law. He is a member of the Wealth Council, Elder Council, the Academy of Special Needs Planners, the Estate Planning Council of North Georgia, and the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. We welcome Mr. Miles to tonight's event. Mr. Miles.
Thank you, Ronald. I appreciate the introduction. I'm glad to be here.
All right. We're glad to have you. And now I will turn it over to our next investor, Ms. Donita Townsend.
I'll step in there. It's Sharon Turner. I'm the next person announcing, but
Yep.
I am a tech investor, and my why for being a part of this organization is I followed some of these young ladies for many years, and they don't even know this via social media, and found them to be women of integrity. And so when they started this, I thought, ooh, let me look a little closer and see what they're doing. And I was really impressed, and I want to be a part of helping create generational wealth in our community. So that's my why for being a part of the DEC community. I'm here tonight introducing Miss Yonina Gray, and I'm really excited about it. Yonina is a Chicago native with over a decade of experience building catalytic relationships between communities, governments, and everything in between. Yonina is passionate about empowering communities and elevating their quality of life through strategic community development and institutional change management. Formerly the Director of Business Development for the Southeast, Yonina helped put reinvestment funds boots on the ground when it officially entered the Atlanta market in 2016 and has since grown the organization's brand power in this region. As Reinvestment Fund's Director of External Relations, Yonina drives national business development objectives to establish new market presence and relationships that pave the way for corporate growth. Yonina maintains a bird's eye view of the organization to identify trends, best practices, partnerships, and growth opportunities. Yonina also develops targeted external messaging to promote and enhance Reinvestment Fund's corporate reputation nationally. Based in Atlanta, Yonina is energized by opportunities to connect with rural communities and to serve HBCUs. Yonina is a board member of the Georgia Social Impact Collaborative and a board chair for the Incremental Development Alliance, which is a national nonprofit that trains small-scale developers. She's a 2020 Next City Vanguard. Yonina has a Master of Urban Planning and Policy degree from the University of Illinois of Chicago and an MBA from Emory's Gazweta Business School. So welcome, Ms. Yonina Gray.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Looking forward to the conversation. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And now I will turn this over to Ms. Donita Townsend.
Thank you so much, Ms. Turner. First of all, I'm Danita Townsell, and I joined the deck because I like its concept and it reminded me of the village of old that my parents often speak of. So I'm pleased to be here. I'm proud to be a member of the deck. I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator for tonight's session, Ms. Donna Lowry. She is an award-winning journalist who combines a passion for storytelling with a desire to empower others with the communication and critical thinking skills surrounding political, educational, cultural diversity, and financial issues. Through her firm, Donna Lowry Communications, she provides consulting, writing, producing services for educational media, education, professional, and business outlets. Donna hosts several programs, including Lawmakers of Georgia on public broadcasting, and When I'm 65, a monthly financial and investment education show produced by PBS Books and the Detroit Public Television. Donna is a 7-time Regional Emmy Award winner, a 3-time Gabriel Award recipient, and has garnered honors from countless organizations, including the National Association of Black Journalists and the Atlanta Association of Black Journalists. And Donna has a master's degree in journalism from Northwestern University and a bachelor's in mass communications and administration and management from Chatham University. Her professional affiliations include the Atlanta Press Club and the Atlanta Association of Black Journalists, the National Association of Black Journalists, and the Southeastern chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. In her 14th year as a Girl Scout leader, bless her, Donna has led girls ranging from age kindergarten to 12th grade. Her community service affiliations also include the Magnolia chapter of the Links Incorporated and Nu Lambda Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Donna and her husband, retired Army Major Bennett Reed Jr., are the parents of 3 amazing daughters. Let's welcome Ms. Lowry, our moderator.
All right. Thank you so much, Donita. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for introducing me. And thank you to the investors and the founders for even allowing me to be a part of this. I feel pretty honored about it because of what you guys do and the fact that you're community oriented. You care about the community. And so I think it's exciting what you're doing. And I know that the investors are all fired up about it, but those who are watching are going to be fired up about it too, thanks to this session tonight. So I get the chance to learn along with everybody else, and I'm excited about that. So we're going to get started with talking to our panelists, and we're going to begin with you, Julian Pouncy, with, as we found out, you're a wealth manager at Northwestern Mutual. And let's start with, we hear all the time that investments should be diversified. You know, we hear about, diversify your portfolio, but briefly recap what that means actually, and how can owning real estate in your overall investment portfolio help you with your portfolio to make it more diversified?
Thanks, Donna. That's a very good question. In layman's terms, diversification just means don't put all your eggs in one basket, because I'll give you the prime example. If you're dealing with a stock and you put all your stock in that one, then your overall outcome is going to be dependent upon the performance of that one entity, versus diversifying. And in a truly diversified portfolio, whether it's investments with securities or real estate or any other kind of investment, it means that at any given point in time, all of your investments will be going in different directions, depending on what your risk tolerance is. So if you have a very high risk tolerance, you can take the volatility. Well, you're going to have a lot of ups and downs during bad markets. In good markets, you're going to be killing it. But in a bad market, you're going to be getting killed, regardless if it's real estate or traditional investments. Regarding the question of whether or not real estate should be a good component, yes, that's a number of different ways that real estate can help to diversify within a given portfolio, and even layers underneath that. For instance, traditionally, when you hear real estate, you're thinking of brick and mortar or land. However, you can buy mutual funds that have real estate in them. They're called REITs. and they can be incorporated into an overall securities portfolio, and they're uncorrelated. And here's what that means: diversification and correlation. Real estate is an uncorrelated asset, meaning that it doesn't perform the way that traditional assets perform under stressful situations. So it can be a buffer, and it also is an income generator for your overall portfolio, whether it's a brick and mortar or whether it's a real estate security. So it's definitely a great avenue for diversification.
Yeah, I think we're beginning to see a lot of what's going on with the market right now for real estate. We know it is pretty hot right now. I have a daughter who's actually out looking. So although it seems to be cooling a little bit, it's still pretty hot right now. Is real estate generally still a good investment? And we have been told to buy low, sell high. We always hear that, but real estate seems to be doing the opposite. Explain that a little bit.
Well, it could be. It depends on the investor. Are you buying for the short term or for the long term? It also depends on what region of the country or the planet, for that matter, that you're investing into. So during good markets and bad markets, people still make money in the stock market and in real estate. During bad markets, people are still flipping houses and making money flipping houses, just like they are in a hot market like it is right now. The problem I see is that it's called herd mentality, where you follow the herd. And usually when you do that, you're going to get burned. You've got to really become a student of the game, or find somebody who is a student of the game for you that you can outsource that resource to, and then have a strategic plan around, why am I investing? Am I intending to buy and hold for the long term, or is this a quick turnaround? And that's going to dictate whether or not this is a good time to invest. Also, investing is not always about the gain. Sometimes it's about tax mitigation as well, because it could be a great time to gather a piece of property to help mitigate any taxes that you may be facing, especially in a year like this when the market's been on fire, people have made a lot of money. Real estate might be a good conduit to help mitigate some of those taxes that are coming from your other investments.
Yeah, you hear about people doing that all the time. So we're going to learn how to do that and be a part of that. Well, thank you. And we're going to move on to Ramon Tookes. You know, he's with Tookes Development LLC, and you're referred to as a serial real estate investor. So you have to explain that a little bit more. You have been investing in real estate all across the country. So what are 3 things that you look for when deciding if you're going to invest in a certain piece of real estate?
So, the first thing I look at, and I know traditionally folks have said location, 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 and that's actually not what we look at first. We look at numbers first. So, if our exit strategy is flipping, what kind of returns can we get? If it's buying, holding, what kind of numbers can we get? So we start off by looking at numbers. I don't care where the property is located, because we can get there by, plane or car pretty quickly now. The second thing we look at is, what kind of resources do we have in that community? How quickly can we build teams, boots on the ground in the community that can help us develop that property? And then we look at location. So ultimately, the numbers are the most important thing for me and our team. And then we, trickle down to where the location is.
Yeah, numbers. Okay. And I want to remind everybody at this point that this is interactive. We want you to ask questions so you can start getting those questions together, because I know that as you're listening to these great experts that you have some questions. So we want to hear from you. So let's continue with you, Ramon. How did you get your start in investing in real estate? What's your story?
Well, I started, I was at Georgia State University. First year in college, and had been around entrepreneurs all my life, and so real estate, I was kind of pushed into real estate, but I started off as a bird dog. I was just out there knocking on doors for seasoned investors, looking to make money. My goal then is not the same as it is now. Then I just wanted to make money. Now I've been out here now, this is year 27, so looking to build more communities, grow for my family, for my building a legacy and some generational wealth for my kids. When I first started, I just wanted some new sneakers and, to be able to go out and have a good time. But I fell in love with it at the age of 19. So, and from there, we started buying, holding. Flipping wasn't kind of trendy back 26 years ago as it is now. It wasn't a lot of TV shows. And then buying, holding is where I wanted it. This is where I started off at first. With rental properties, we had some multifamily over in like the Vine City area, West End area. We were born and raised right here in Atlanta. And then we've moved on to development, single families, multifamily, and commercial.
And so you would recommend that young people consider this. I mean, I think some of them wait to get to a certain point in their life before they look into investing in real estate, but you did it fairly young, 19.
Yeah. And you know what? I believe they should start young, at least learning the principles of it, if not getting involved. But there's so many ways to get involved. You can be a real estate agent at 18. You can do what now is kind of the new version of bird dogging, which is wholesaling, which is going out again, finding deals for other investors. And you can get involved with organizations like that and just make sure you invest, their money. Some of their, we used to take return money from like our tuition and go blow it. They can take it and invest it in something that's greater, even partner with some other investors at a very young age. They'll appreciate it later.
Yeah, even though they want those sneakers, they may want to try something else. So let's go on to you, Ms. Gray, Yanina Gray, a finance and investment executive with Community Development Initiative. Thanks for being here. So community is so important to sustaining and supporting any real estate venture. And why is involving the surrounding people and businesses so important to make sure a real estate venture is successful?
Thank you for asking that question, Donna. Just for a little bit of context, I work for Reinvestment Fund, which is a community development financial institution, or a CDFI. And CDFIs it's a sector that was born in the 70s in response to systemic anti-Black racism in the financial industry. So really designed to really provide capital and debt into our Black communities in ways that banks have just never done well. So a part of our strategy is not just looking for financial feasibility. Of course, we want to return on our investment, but really making sure that there is impact and that it is mission driven. And in doing so, we have to be really thoughtful about how a project lands. So we have to understand what the impact is, how it affects people, how is it changing and transforming the lives of the people who interact with the project. And if that's not an element of what you're developing, then it is not something that we would be able to support. So that is a fairly significant part of our underwriting process, which means that you have to identify partners in the community to get a sense of how will this be received? Because a grocery store is not always going to be well received. An apartment project is not always going to be well received. There are characters and personalities that might be swirling around your team that just might not be well received in a way that might impact your ability to recapture the revenue that you're looking for. So all of that is really, really important. And most developers skip over that because they're just looking at numbers and they're not being thoughtful enough about how their project lands, which we know as a people historically, we have had so many projects dropped into our communities without much thought that have had really negative impacts on where we live and raise our children. And so we as Black folks that are trying to invest and support our communities should be more thoughtful about that. And there's so many partners in every corner, in every neighborhood who will help you think about that. So that's really, really important as we think about the impact of our investments.
Yeah, we've had so many instances where we've had somebody come into our communities and then we just find out about it and then we're not invested in it. And we don't actually want it. So I love this organization because that's a part of making sure that we are thinking about those kinds of things and not dealing with reaction, but being proactive about it. So obviously finances are an important part of the real estate investment equation. So what is your specific message about individual personal finances before someone decides to actually invest in real estate? What do you tell them?
Yeah, so I think someone may have mentioned in my bio that I'm really passionate about working with HBCUs. And one of the things that I'm working on with the schools is helping them to tell their stories because they have unfortunately been put in this box and had to sort of clean up their backgrounds to pretend that they have not been stifled by systemic racism, particularly from a financial perspective. So as a financial institution, we are trying to figure out how we can empower them to tell the truth about the ways that they have flourished and shined and gotten to 2021 on one leg with one arm behind their backs. And so I want to encourage anyone that's listening to think about what is your story that you need to tell without you cleaning up too much of sort of bruises that financial players are going to find. So I would say don't try to hide your story because we will find it. I have spent so much time with people who have very tricky, challenging credit reports, for example. We will find it. You can't really hide from that. So what is your story? How are you going to help us understand? Because when you find the right financial partner, they will be absolutely willing to work with you and actually will probably be turned off if you are not forthcoming about some of the challenges that you have had to overcome. So be ready to tell your story. Be prepared to do that through a narrative. Also have a budget. Also be thinking about financial statements. Just be organized and be prepared to go back and forth with a financial player, because we're going to ask you a lot of questions to just really get comfortable with you as an individual for us to support you in the project that you're doing.
So telling your story would involve just being able to explain any hiccups you might have in your story,
And
right?
not just hiccups.
You know-
It's your hiccups are a part of your story, but what I'm saying is don't shy away from hiccups. Everyone has them, and don't try to hide them, because if we find them after you've hidden them, that is just not a great start.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Let's move on to Keith Miles, who is an estate planning and tax attorney with the law offices of Keith Miles. The DEC founders are asked all the time about tax and estate planning implications of owning real estate. So when is it a good time to involve an estate planning attorney like yourself in your plans? Is it before, during, or after you actually invest in real estate?
Donna, that's a good question. I know the attorneys will always like to say, you like to be in there at the beginning, right? And that's not always practical. As an estate planning attorney, my role is not particularly transactional. That will be more the real estate attorney and the business lawyer. My goal is more the generational wealth. Okay, let's plan on how we're going to transfer and protect, right? So I could be in at the beginning, hopefully, and maybe eliminate some potential problems that might come. But if not, we have to work around it and fix it, and hopefully the ability is there to do that. We always try to plan as estate planning attorneys really in 3 areas. So there's the distribution planning, of course, who gets what, when did they get it, how did they get it? Asset protection. So we want to make sure there's some creditor, especially as real estate, if you have some tenants or something, you might have some liability issues. We want to make sure we plan for that, whether you use an entity, trust, or some kind of special mechanism to protect yourself. And then also we talk about taxes. Of course, you can never forget taxes. So a lot of times people are in real estate are focused on the income tax side, the year-to-year 1040 deductions and depreciation and everything else. As the estate planning attorney, we also are looking at wealth transfer taxes. So other taxes that you may never think about, estate taxes, gift taxes. We have something called generation skipping taxes. You pass things down to another generation, your grandkids. So all of these things come into play, especially you have these professionals on this panel that help you grow your portfolio, and it gets to a certain size, and you may have some issues with those areas of taxes and asset protection that we need to work on.
Yeah, so generational wealth is something that as a community, we haven't thought about as much as we should. And certainly we've lost it over the years because of that, because we just didn't know any better. We had the property, but we didn't know any better. So there are different ways for people to own property, and a specific legal way to convey interest. So can you speak generally about those ways and how to convey land to others, that kind of thing?
Absolutely, Donna. We find that that's really the issue is, people especially in real estate, you're so anxious to build and grow that the legal logistics of how things pass may not have come across your radar. So the first, of course, is that people own things individually. You're the only owner on that property. From an estate planning point of view, that's a potential liability issue. You have no entity around you. If you have any lawsuit, you can lose that property. In addition, if something happens to you, while you're alive, if you become incapacitated, you might need a power of attorney to handle that because no one else can, because you're the only person on there. And then, of course, if you pass away, there is no way to transfer that title but for a probate action. Also, you can have jointly held property. You might own something that's called joint tenants with right of survivorship. That way, multiple people own it. When one person passes, their interest automatically goes to the remaining people. That may work well. Maybe if it's a married couple, that's maybe I always use the Huxtables or the Bradys, right? If you're the Huxtables, that works perfectly. Either one, doesn't matter who survives. The kids, 5 kids gonna get it. But the Brady bunch, if you have right of survivorship, okay, if Mike goes first, Carol Brady gets 100% of the interest, his 3 boys may not get anything, okay? So you have to think through these things, these issues. Tenants in common. All right, that means that if one person, whoever passes, will be more than one person in that property, but you each have your own share that passes down through your estate. So if I invest with someone, say I invest with my brother, I pass away, my share passes down to whether my spouse or my children or whoever. That way I can invest with someone and know that my efforts are gonna be rewarded. So that's another way that we can do that. Of course, you may not want to have property in your name at all. You may want to put it into an entity and get some asset protection. We start talking about S corps, LLCs, and other things. And then people, of course, hear about trust. Oh, I know people talk about maybe we should do a trust, but then you have different types of trusts. You have revocable trusts that are really probate avoidance tools, but they have no asset protection. So as a real estate investor, you may want to look at irrevocable trusts that can have some special provisions there that provide that asset protection for you. So those are a bunch of different tools that we have in our box to help people.
Yeah, and fortunately, there are people like you out there who can help us through all of that. And I know with this pandemic, a lot of people, we had loss and we lost family members, and there were people who just hadn't planned for any of those things. So this is why we need to talk about those issues. Certainly, they're not always easy to talk about. We don't want to. We don't want to think about losing someone, but it can really put you in a bad way if you haven't discussed how these property issues you're going to deal with them. And so I'm so glad that you're out there and that we're all talking about these kind of things. Well, I've asked questions now, and the good thing is there are other people who have questions they want to ask, and it's time for them to ask questions, although I may pop in there with a question or two. And so I know we're going back to our investors. I believe Sherry Lake is going to have some questions now. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, thank you so much. And before I ask my question, let me give you my why. I am born and mostly 100% bred in DeKalb County. Born many, many years ago. And so I love DeKalb County and I care a lot about the community here. I'm an attorney and a mediator in DeKalb County as well, a member of Leadership DeKalb. So I feel highly invested in this county. I have invested in DEC for a number of reasons. One, I know these women who started DEC. They are incredibly bright and committed and have done an incredible job making this happen. So I have a lot of faith in their vision and I believe in them. Secondly, it's just a really smart, easy investment for me. I mean, in a great way to diversify my assets and investments. And so it made a lot of sense from a practical perspective. And also most importantly, I want to do whatever I can, my small part of helping to support Black dollars staying within the Black community. And I think that's really important. So anything I can do to encourage that and support that, I'm going to do that. So my question, this is for everybody on the panel, but I'll start with Ms. Lowry. Why is the topic of investing in real estate in our community so important to the overall wealth of Black Americans?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that just recently I had somebody tell me that that their grandfather told them when they were young that if nothing else, invest in land. That land was so important, and so we had our ancestors do that, and mine were in Oklahoma, and not too far from Greenwood. Black Wall Street. We certainly on May 31st, on the anniversary of what happened there, Black Wall Street. We heard a lot about it. And so my family is in Muskogee County, not too far from all of that, and they own land. And that was a big part of it. And that was a way of building wealth. And I remember my grandmother talking about it too, of the family land and how important it was in Wybark, which was a Black town not too far from Greenwood. And so I think for me that I can think back to what it meant to my family and what it meant to that general area in Oklahoma where Greenwood is and what they did. So of course we had the horrible tragedy, but our ancestors felt it was important and understood the importance of real estate in terms of wealth. And we've got to think about that too. And so it's just a continuation for me of making sure that we think about what we were taught. And that is that real estate is important, and it's a way for us to have something that's ours. So.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lowry. How about Mr. Pouncy? And you're muted.
Sorry about that. I could go on for hours about the importance of this type of a venture in our community. Everybody's touched on it as far as, we've all heard that, ownership of land, ownership of real estate is the foundation for building wealth in America. We hear that, but nobody really explains why. And, this gets to the core of it is because you can actually use it in so many different ways during your lifetime and also after. It's a legacy that you can pass on to others. But through strategically using the equity in the real estate or in the land that you're investing during your lifetime, you can use that in a way to become your own bank and get other assets without going to the bank. You can also do so many different tax-free strategies where utilizing the equity and accessing the equity inside of your properties. I can go on and on. This is what's missing in our community as far as making us economically viable, economically independent, and being able to pass that baton to the next generation with a lead or neck and neck rather than trying to catch up with everybody else, which is the story of most of us for too many decades.
That's a great answer. Mr. Tookes, how about you?
Well, Ms. Lowry said it and Mr. Pouncy just reiterated what I would say. But one of the things is ownership without the knowledge that we have here has hurt us so much. So there's a lot of times things are passed down, but people don't keep them. So investing in the community, but investing in having groups around us like Mr. Miles and Ms. Pouncy and Ms. Gray, so that we're educated enough to keep and understand how to invest it. So I think the importance of that is, the pride piece of it, passing it down and ownership. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's easy to get into some real estate, but keeping it and doing the right things with it is probably why it's so important for us to do it and the way we're doing it today.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gray, how about your answer?
Sure, and I'll respond a little bit to Nehemiah's question here about how are we defining investing in the Black community, and we all may have our own definition, but for me, I think of it as investing in places where Black people are dominant demographically. That's for me. So it's not, I won't say what it's not, but that's what it is for me. So, and I think it's really important because we can think about a number of instances where, for example, the federal government has tried to address challenges around segregation and exclusion, and it just doesn't work all that well. In my opinion, the people who are best suited to address and to serve Black communities are people who come from those places and who have the care and understanding to invest thoughtfully and strategically in those places. So when we think about things like the fact that certain grocery stores or even big box retailers won't go to certain communities and they will sort of write it off as too risky. We know in the financial industry that is a coded and loaded terminology that is full of racism. And so that is why it is really important for us to get smarter about the ways that we can empower our people and places for quality of life. And I will just say something really quickly. We are probably all very familiar with the concept of retail leakage. And retail leakage means that you live in a place, but every day you have to leave to go spend your money because you don't have the quality of restaurants, you don't have the quality of grocery stores, you don't have the nice gym, but you go to work every day. So what does that mean? We are not living in complete and efficient communities, largely because of perceptions of risk, which is really a coded term for systemic racism that is pervasive in the real estate development community, which is why there need to be more of us thinking strategically about how to address it.
That's a great answer. Mr. Miles, lastly.
Yes, I definitely heard a couple of things in there: equity, empowerment. I heard something being efficient and just having that community where you can feel that you're stable and strong and self-sufficient. So I think for me as an attorney, there's a history in our country of Black land loss. You ever go to get a chance to look up what's called heirs property, and we've had the opportunity to pass down land, but in the manner that we've done it has split the ownership to a point that there have been partition actions where things have been taken from us. So we are now getting to the point, at least the bar across the country is now recognizing the problem where these partition actions are being fought against. And so hopefully we now are emphasizing not only to pass along, but taking the time to know the manner in which we have to do it to protect it. So I think it's important for us, not only for the economics of it, but also for the vision to pass down in terms of a legacy to say, okay, you can do anything, but you always have to pay attention to how you do it and what manner you do it, and then you can then go forward.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm gonna now pass the torch to our final investor, Donna Kay.
Thank you, Sherry. I really appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. I am Donna Cade. I am an investor, and I'm so full this evening. You guys have given so much information, and it is so very powerful. I have some questions to ask you, but I want to tell you my why. So the reason that I became an investor is because I believe in generational wealth, but I needed a tool, someone, somewhere, something to help me and guide me and instruct me as to how I can become an investor. And just like Ms. Gray, I was connected to some of the women here that are investors, the founders, and I believed in them and their integrity as well. And it was a great opportunity for myself and my husband to become investors. So obviously we were excited with the opportunity to invest, and therefore we became investors. So for this evening, I'd like to ask the whole panel, why was it important to you to participate in this panel this evening? We know you could be doing several other things, but tonight you came. And so I want to start with Ms. Lowry. Why was it important for you to participate in this panel?
Well, as I've said earlier, I'm involved with several, or was in the introduction, that I moderate a couple of financial programs, including one for Detroit Public Television. And the information that we're able to pass along is so important. And I just realized that whenever I can help our community better understand when things are going on with them, especially when it comes to finances, I want to be a part of the solution, trying to help in some small way. I don't have the expertise of the wonderful panelists, but if I can help ask the questions and help with the storytelling in terms of making sure people understand it, help translate some of what their knowledge to other people, that's what I'm interested in doing.
Great, thank you so much, Donna. Let's go to Mr. Tookes. Same question, Mr. Tookes. Why is it important for you to participate on this panel?
Well, first of all, it's such a powerful movement that they have put together. And I always say, to whom much is given, much is required. And, you know, God has truly blessed me, born and raised right here in Atlanta. I've been given a lot of people have sacrificed for me. So it's my job to do the same thing. So giving back some time and our knowledge and our resources is what we're supposed to do. And so that's why I'm here tonight.
Great, thank you. And guys, I just was informed that my camera isn't on, but I am here with you. So let's go to Mr. Miles. Mr. Miles, why is it important for you to participate in this panel?
Well, it's really the heart of what I do in my profession, and certainly my goal of getting education and information out there. So many people have assets that do transfer automatically, like life insurance and retirement plans, but then the bulk of things that have to be really cared for to transfer are real estate, whether it's business items or LLCs or principal residence that they live in, investment property. So this really is at the heart of my profession, and I want to make sure that people understand the need to seek professional help many times, even if it seems simple, just to make sure that they've thought about all the different angles that need to be thought about.
That's perfect. And Mr. Miles, I'd like to ask if someone wants to contact you, and I'd like to get that from all the other panelists as well. Can you please tell us how they can reach you?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. My website is estateplanesq.com, estateplanesq.com, and my phone number is 770-817-7636, 770-817-7636. Okay,
and we will make sure that we put that in the chat so that others can see that. And Ms. Lowry, if you don't mind, is there a contact number if someone has questions for you as well?
Yes, the best way to reach me is Donna Lowry News at gmail.com. Donna Lowry News, and I'm Lowry without an E in it. DONNA-LOWRYNEWS at Gmail.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Mr. Tookes, we need to get your contact information because we want to learn more.
Yes, my direct cell phone is 404-246-5930. Again, that's 404-246-5930.
Thank you very much. Let's turn it over to Mr. Pouncy. Mr. Pouncy, can you tell me why it was important for you to participate in this panel this evening?
Sure. Like so many of the other panelists, it helps to foster the message that I'm trying to get out into the community. I also am involved with 100 Black Men. I chair economic empowerment, and real estate and real estate ownership is one of the cornerstones of the platform we're trying to foster. It's vitally important. I mean, I've seen the power of a diversified real estate portfolio and the lifestyle that it can help to promote and to offer during a lifetime. And I've got clients who have real estate inside trust that their grandparents left them, and it's that gift that keeps on giving. And we need, in our community, we just need to be more aware of this because, listen, we're all only a generation or a generation and a half out of sharecropping. A lot of this stuff is new to us. And we've got to do more programs like this. It's a grassroots thing as far as the big, marketing as well, but you gotta meet the people where they are so that we can all move the needle. So that's why I thought it was important for me to be here.
Oh, that's very important. And how can someone reach you?
Very simple. My website is julianpouncy.nm.com. And my direct line is 678-571-4883.
Thank you so much for sharing. Ms. Gray, I know you have some information to tell us. I'd like to know why you decided to be a part of this panel. And if you could, close us out and also let us know how we can reach you.
I'll give you my contact information first. So Yonina Gray, you can reach me. I put my contact information in the chat.
Thank you.
You can also find me on LinkedIn. My email address is yonina.gray, which is gray@reinvestment.com. I'm best reached by email, so I won't give you my phone number because I don't listen to voicemail. So don't call me. I will be much more responsive via email. So I'm super happy to be here just because I think there's so many signals that tell folks that this is an impossible challenge and that only certain people get to participate in this space, and that is absolutely not true. I also know that most people have never heard of a CDFI. There are 1,000 CDFIs all over this country. Reinvestment Fund happens to just be one of the largest that works nationally, but I'm certain that there is one very close to you. I encourage you to look into that. And those organizations are really designed to provide affordable, flexible capital to support the very projects that you are thinking about. So I just encourage people to not be afraid and do not fall for the signals that encourage you or discourage you from supporting and investing in our communities.
Wow, thank you so much. You all are very, very awesome. It's been very informative. And so now we're going to just turn it back over to Ms. Lowry. I'm sure people has questions. Thank you all so much.
They do. Thank you so much, Donna, from one Donna to another.
Right.
Thank you. So we do have some questions, and so we'll get to as many as we can, but if you have them, continue to ask them in the Q&A section. Markel Bryant asked you, Ramon, you mentioned numbers. He said, what exact numbers are you looking for? Also, are there certain numbers or profit margins you want to see before deciding to invest? And if so, how do you determine that?
Ooh, that's a loaded one.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. You know, what I would say is it depends on who you are and what your goals are. There may be some investors that don't mind smaller margins. It depends on the city. Your returns in some major cities are definitely a lot smaller than they are in some of, like for us, some of the Midwest, some of the southern cities that we invest in. So determining what numbers you want to start investing with depends on you and your team, your accountant, your goals for your life, where you are, how much of a risk tolerance. You know, the more risk tolerance, probably the more opportunities you have to make more money, without or bigger profits, I would say. So that question is so loaded. Like we can sit down and each person on here is probably going to be different, a different answer to that question.
Okay. And does anybody want to include, anybody want to say something real quick though? All right, so we'll move on. There's another question here. Dwayne Johnson says there are a lot of Black people that have land and aren't capitalizing off that land. How do you as panelists invest in community that encompasses economic and workforce development, because the Black community is 20 years behind white communities, he says. Anybody want that one?
Can you repeat that again? No, I'm sorry.
So I guess what he's saying is, he says, how do you invest in a community that encompasses the economic and workforce development, because the Black community is 20 years behind white community. So what are we doing, I guess, I'm trying to interpret as the Black community to make sure that we are capitalizing on off of what we already have? Anybody? So what should we be doing with it?
I'll jump in there for a second.
All righty.
I think we just continue to do what we're doing, is reinvesting those dollars, making the community better. So it gives the opportunities for more employment. It gives the opportunity for more pride in the community. So I think if I'm reading the question right, it is continue to do what we're doing. The DEC is doing a great job. They're raising this capital. The Cap County will be better because of the DEC. And that's probably what we need to do in any community, that we can raise enough capital to do what the DEC is doing.
Okay. So Tendra asks, how important is it for new investors to focus on commercial investments? Is that you, Julian, to talk about a little bit?
Well, some of the stats, it depends on which area, which sector of commercial that you're considering. Because, for instance, office space and logistics is expected to have an increase going forward as people go back to work. Everybody is not going to stay at home forever. And, those may be some lucrative opportunities there. There are other sectors that may pull back a little bit. So you have to become a student of the game. Whatever your investment is, you have to become a student of that in order to make the proper decisions, or hire somebody who, I'm not a real estate expert, not on the commercial side, but there are people out there who can look at the trends and give you, people like Raymond, who probably know a lot more about the trends that are going on in that sector. I'm more of an overall investment strategist.
Okay. So here's another one. What for a young investor, and Ramon, I know you were a young investor, but the others may want to touch on this too. What is some advice you would give to someone living in an expensive market, such as Washington, D.C.? He says, this is Rashana. I think it's a female, I'm sorry. I am a native Washingtonian where the majority of the community used to be Black. And as I've gotten older, the demographics are changing. The prices have gone up tremendously. I'm 25 years old and eager to buy properties in the city. So what do you suggest to her? And actually, I think any of you might be able to help with this. Anybody? Go ahead, Ramon.
Well, Donna, let me say this. You made a mistake. You said I was a young investor. I'm still pretty young.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I did. Oh, forgive me. Forgive me. That's
I'm
right.
joking. I'm
sorry.
joking. No, we're all
I
young.
get it,
We're
I
all
get
still
it.
pretty young. But
You are.
investing. My daughter is at Howard right now, and this is her third year. And so, one of the goals that I have is before she leaves, I want to buy something in DC because it's all relative. It's expensive compared to what it was, but it is cheap compared to what it will be. So if you buy now, the properties in DC are not going anywhere. It's just like Atlanta, in my opinion. I think you buy now, the interest rates are so great, you probably still can afford it with the rates being low, and just hold on to it. Like, don't look to find things to flip. That's the toughest market we have right now, looking for properties to flip. Buy something to rent out to the college students, live in one unit, whatever it may be. But don't think that it's too big for you to buy. Buy now. If you are in DC, I'm looking to buy, hopefully before she graduates, so she can have something to rent out for years. So I think that's the best option. If you're a young investor, if you think being in DC is expensive, wait until 5 years from now. Watch what that $400,000 property is going to look like.
Yeah, and I'll jump in too, because when it comes to that kind of decision, a lot of it depends on your cash flow. Cash flow is king. So if you're going to be in that area, like Ramon said, if you're going to be in that area for the long term, you're either going to be a renter or you're going to be a buyer. And FYI, renting is always more expensive than buying. So if you're renting a place for 10 years and you add up the amount of rent you've paid, it might be 6 figures that you've paid somebody to pay off their property versus having that money going into your own property and producing revenue, dividend, tax strategies, all kinds of benefits for you. It just depends on how long you're going to be there. If you're going to be a migrant and you're not going to be there for the long term, okay, don't buy. But if you're planted there, you got to look at your cash flow and say, what is the most efficient use of my cash flow over the time that I'm planning to be here? And it's usually going to be to make that buy.
Okay. Well, we have another question, and this is from Dwayne too. And he says, what does the panel think is the impact of working with an established Black Chamber of Commerce as it relates to reinvesting in the Black community? Any thoughts about that? Working with the chamber? Especially when it comes through commercial real estate, things like that.
Well,
How familiar are they
with
with
the
some
Atlanta
of
Black
those things?
Chamber? So I might be able to address that one.
Okay, go ahead.
As Keith and I'm sure some other members on here too. Listen, when it comes to working with the chamber, it can be a great resource to give you inroads. There's deals and there's deals. There's the deals that happen behind the closed doors and the ones that, open to just everybody. But I think from a strategic positioning standpoint, it's a no-brainer to work with some Chamber of Commerce, and why not the Black Chamber of Commerce in your particular area.
Okay. Anybody else? Keith?
Yeah, I wanted to comment that, I guess Julian mentioned a good point. You have to have that strategy where you start incorporating other people in your process. And the other lady before that asked the question in DC, you may initially think, well, I'm on this investment by myself, but then I started to think just on my own. Well, you may have family members. Maybe you reach out and say, you know what, hey, let me talk to uncles, parents, grandparents, and start to say, well, let's go talk to an attorney, accountant, see what we can do together. Maybe have a family. There's a big thing, family partnerships, family LLCs. You start pooling your money. And so there's other possibilities when you start to think and talk to others, and you might get certain things that come into your view that weren't there before. So I would say that the best part of working with someone in the chamber, they're probably going to be an expert in their profession, and they may have contacts that you don't have, or just thoughts and plans that can put some seed into you that you never had before. So I would think that would be the most important thing.
Yeah, to hear that you guys belong to the chambers means a lot, that you'd be able to have those resources. It's connections, it's networking, those kind of things. So it's always good. So another question. The person says, I'm just learning about the DEC, so congratulations on creating such a progressive organization focused on community empowerment via real estate investment. Can you tell us about any specific range or composition of assets that you are most focused on? Office buildings, industrial, retail, and are your investments focused on properties in DeKalb County? And I think we're going to need somebody from the DEC to answer this one.
So, yes, so thank you for that question. So we are going to direct you to our website because we have all our offering documents on that. And I know we sound like a broken record telling you to go to the website, but many of you know that I'm a securities attorney. And so I always like to direct people to where it is in writing so that you can take a look at all our disclaimers and risks and all of that information. So if you go to our website and download our business plan, it has all that information in there, as well as where you can contact us if you still have questions after you finish reading all those materials. But please download that business plan. It has all that information in there. So thank you.
And once again, that's dollaремpowered.com. That's the website you want to go to on that. We'll take some more questions. We don't have any, we don't have them right now, but I was wondering from the panelists, and I think I want to talk to you, Keith, a little bit more about when it comes to trying to figure out generational wealth, and people are trying to figure out, you know, especially with, as I mentioned earlier, what we've been going through this pandemic, losing people and not preparing properly. Where do you begin, and how do you start that conversation with grandma or your mother or, you know, father about some of the property they may have that they're not really focusing on right now? I have a 90-year-old, my 90-year-old mother-in-law. My husband and his siblings are just now having those conversations, and but it hasn't been easy to have those conversations. So how do you begin that? What do you suggest?
We have and this is, you know, always going to depend on the family, but we always suggest that you have what's called a family meeting, right? So you kind of get, rather than have one-on-one conversations, maybe have a plan, especially with the holidays coming up in November and December. Maybe people are naturally going to gather, and you say, "Hey, let's plan to talk about the future." All right, and that gives the younger generation a chance to, you know, like I said, find out what's going on and ask their questions, but it also gives the older generation the chance to kind of express their thoughts and desires for what's to happen with that property or whatever they want the family to do. A lot of times the question is, of course, who's included in that? Or if you exclude someone, does that cause problems later? So there's some things that, do you want to do it with a professional? Or do you want to just have it only family? So there's some logistical things in that, but I think the key is to talk. And to talk maybe formally rather than just have, you know, a lot of times in families, people have dynamics where, you know, certain people have different personalities and more dominant, or more, some people just have history where they shy away from conversation. So I think if you do things formally, you can start that. And estate planning, just so people know, is not only about after death. Estate planning for a lot of attorneys is for life, later life, particularly we worry about incapacity planning. So we want to have those conversations with older members before they lose the opportunity to do those conversations. And if you then, what happens so much, and you can talk to any estate planning attorney, is people call us and say, I want to get a power of attorney over, and, you know, insert whoever it is, mom, dad, you know, and you don't get a power of attorney over someone, they have to give it to you. So have that capacity to give it to you anymore. Now you have to go to the courts and guardianships and conservatorships, and it's a mess. So just start talking now. Like I said, especially with the holidays coming up, that's probably my best suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I have a godmother who is, you know, just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so her children are trying to to talk to her about things. Of course, that's been a difficult task because she's forgetting a lot. Her short-term memory is an issue at this point. So that's another reason to start talking about these things early on, because you never know how things can change. And it was progressive. She's 76. I think of her as still pretty young, and yet she's going through those things. As we get ready to wrap up a little bit, I thought maybe I'd give each one of you a chance to give some final thoughts that you'd like to pass along to the audience as we finish this up. So I go kind of, I call this kind of a lightning round where you kind of just a takeaway that you want people to have about the people who are looking to get into this space. And let's start with you, Julian. What's your takeaway?
Well, the takeaway I would say is, listen, at the turn of the 20th century, Black people own far more land than we own today. Now, if you combine that with the fact that as a group, we make more money now, today, than we've ever made in the history of this nation, yet we're going backwards financially as a group because of a lot of different things that are systemic, but a lot of it is our cultural buying habits. It's a menagerie of different things. This is an opportunity. I think real estate offers a very powerful arrow in your quiver to address some of these issues, because it's assets now and it's assets later, it's income now and it's income later. And very few investment opportunities offer that combination of pluses that come along with it. So I encourage everybody to study, reach out, do your homework on the decks, and make a decision to move the needle in your family.
Okay, thank you very much. Yanina, I'm going to go to you. Your takeaway.
Sure. So I'm all about partners and not reinventing the wheel. So I just think it's really important that we sort of get out of our own way and start to share with people our ideas about investment. And there are a lot of different hats we can wear in this space. We can be developers, we can be the money, we can produce sweat equity. So just really start to articulate to your friends and family what you wish to do and how you want to improve your communities. And also I would encourage you to Google CDFI in your state. So if you live in Georgia, Google CDFI Georgia, and that might be a really good place for you to start to just better understand resources that are there to help you figure all of this out.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Ramon, you're at the bottom because I'm kind of going round robin here. Go ahead.
I would just say, take action. Like, this is such a great panel. And if I was someone, I would, I know it can be scary, but this is what has been set up here with the deck has made it, like, I don't want to call it easy, but I mean, I wish I would have known about, I wish we would have had this when I first started. I wish we would have had this, but we got it now. So take action, make sure you become a part of the deck, do some research. Don't just keep, like information overloading, because too many of us feel like we got to get more information. We're going to analysis paralysis. This is being handed to you on a golden platter. And so I say you go out and do it. And it's a good place to start, because you're starting, you're learning, you're protected. It's probably the best vehicle I've seen. So just take action, like now.
Okay, great. All right, Keith.
I would say my word would be intentional, be very intentional. So many people right now have no will. So that means if you're intestate, the state of Georgia or whatever state will determine how your property passes. And with real estate, if it starts splintering, that's when we usually as a community start getting loss of land and other things, because we don't have the agreement on how to use it. People start going to separate ways when to sell it and cash out. So if you take the time up front to really plan with your entities, your trusts, your will, and coordinate everything, usually you can avoid a lot of those problems later and have the control even after you pass away. If you use in trust in particular, you can dictate for generations how that property will be handled. Like Julian said, there are people still benefiting from some trust that was set up generations before them, and that's where we want to be at.
Okay, good information from all of you. I've learned a lot. I know that audience members have. And so I am going to turn this back over to the deck and have the founders come back on and tell us more as we wrap up. Thank you guys so much. And I was thrilled to be a part of it.
Thank you so very much to each one of our moderators and our panelists. I know we can't see the attendees, but hopefully you guys are giving each one of them a standing ovation, because they didn't have to take the time on this rainy night to talk to us, but they did. And so you can tell who really cares about closing that wealth gap, and it's to each one of them. So thank you so much to Julian and Keith and Donna and Yanina and Ramon. Thank you so much for being here with us. I also want to thank our wonderful investors. We really are investor centered with the deck, because we want to make sure that we are not dictating and telling how we're going to go on this journey. We're going on this journey together. And so we want to make sure that we are always incorporating our investors into everything that we do, and making sure that they feel included. And so we thank our investors that participated with us tonight. The last thing that I will tell you is just to remember to go on the website to answer all your questions that you had tonight about the deck. We really wanted to focus on the panelists and not talk so much about the deck. So if you can go to that website and check us out, it would be greatly appreciated. So next, I am going to see if any of our co-founders have any lasting remarks before we say good night to everyone. Any of our co-founders?
I do, Madam Kendrick.
Yeah.
To all our participants this evening, the panelists, I want to thank you guys for taking your time to be able to share your expertise and experience, even with us as the deck, the Dollar Empower community, and all the people that have asked questions. And there were just a few that I will touch base on. Again, being a 17-year veteran in the real estate business, and have worked on social justice actions, civil rights actions, things of that sort. I sit and I read statistics all the time. And I look at the wealth gap all the time. And especially here in Atlanta, it's unfortunate that we have still a segregated city. So to Nehemiah's point, when you asked, whenever it's time for the questions, what exactly does investing in real estate in a Black community mean? And does that mean only to sell to Black people and buy from Black people? This is a very good question. And I know it's something that many people would not answer, but it's a good one to answer. And I'll tell you why. We have to be intentional, as many of our panelists said, because things were from systematic racism that was set up in order to not allow a certain culture to be able to progress economically like other demographics. We chose specifically in DeKalb County just due to the large population of the demographic that we want to target, because again, we're not looking at it from a residential standpoint, but a commercial standpoint, because not very many of our demographic own commercial real estate, period. And it's always the last to be renovated in a community. You know, we always have the liquor store, the chicken joint or whatever, and nobody ever thinks, oh, we can have a Class A building inside our community, or even a Class B style building. It doesn't always have to be the car wash. What we're doing is looking at taking a different mindset and be able to help people produce wealth by helping create a new, just a new option. As we're seeing in the commercial sector right now, some commercial buildings are actually being transformed into residential buildings. It used to be that commercial real estate was the best and highest use in real estate investing. And now I'm downtown in Peachtree Center, and they're actually converting an entire office building into residential condos. So you actually have to look when the residential market sometimes fall, that's when the commercial market gets better. When the commercial market is slow, that's when the residential market is better. It's just a way of strategy. So to Keith's point and Julian's point is you have to know the game of real estate in order to know how to play. We all love the game of Monopoly. And so the more money you play and be strategic in how your other players are, is how much more money you'll make. So we appreciate you wanting to ask those questions. Most importantly, we're looking forward to you joining in with us. When we first started this, our minimum investment was only $2,500. We've since gone up because everyone started doing $5,000 and beyond. So before we transfer into $7,500, go ahead and join in now, get your shares. And actually, to the point, you'll be able to review all of our background information. You have 3 agents on here who have had more than decades experience, a real estate securities exchange attorney that's on here, that this is exactly what she does on a daily basis. So, and then Teresa's a good woman. She's got so much of credentials, but I'll let them speak on their own. But you know, it's a very good question, and as tough as it is, we have to learn as a community to invest in ourselves. It didn't have to all be Black women. It was presented out to everyone, but we were the ones that believed enough in ourselves to believe in enough in one another to be able to join in. And we put our money where our mouth is, and we look forward to you joining with us as well. Thank you.
Any other founder?
So I'd like to share. Again, I'm Edwina. I'm a co-founder, an entrepreneur. I sell commercial land and residential properties, and I never thought about me owning commercial property. So when I was presented with this idea, I didn't hesitate to join these ladies. The more I hear from these experts, the ones we've heard from this evening, I know I'm in the right place. Not only do we need to invest in our community, we need to tell our kids to go to school and come back and invest in our community. Share with them the information that we have. I appreciated Donna Cade asking the panelists why they agreed to be a part of this panelist. Some of the answers I heard were they wanted to be a part of the solution. This opportunity is a powerful movement. This is my heart to give out information, and acting on it is a gift that keeps on giving. So in saying all that, I am calling all of you to come to action and become a part of the movement, and go to www.dollarimpower.com. Read over the documents and join us and be a part. I look forward to seeing you all to become a part of this team and helping us close the Black wealth gap in our own community. Thank you all panelists for being here, and our guests. Thanks.
Thanks. All right, Stacy, Teresa.
Yeah. So yes, again, I to echo what the other co-founders have said. I thank each one of the panelists, but I most definitely thank our investors. If it wasn't for youth, we wouldn't be where we are today. So I give you the honor. As we go forward, as Amy spoke, we really got to start thinking about this. It's a mindset shift. And when we're talking about wealth, there's only a few things that bring about wealth, and it's insurance, real estate, being an entrepreneur, or any type of stock investment. If we can get our mindset in our community, whatever that community may be, we put color to it, but if it's your community and you want to be protected and safe and you want it to grow, it's your community. That's where you want to do your investment in. In closing that wealth gap, there's only 4 ways to do it. So if you're not participating in that part, what are you really doing? And we're here offering up the opportunity for all of us to do it together. And one thing I've noticed about being millionaires and billionaires, there's always one. So what does that do when there's always one? There's that single, I made it to the top, you get there the best way you can. It's time out for that, because even when that one person gets to the top, there's a whole lot of people on the bottom that's still pulling him down or her down. So this is the opportunity for all of us to take part in something that we all can change, which is something we all talk about. We're educated. We all got great professions. We talk this game, but it's time out to stop talking and do. And I'm here to just do the call to action. Basically, go to our website, read the material, digest what was talked about tonight, and take action. If you don't have the money, that's another thing that we have to think about. How do I get to the point where I have enough money to invest in? Just like when you get ready to buy that Dooney Burke, you get that money, you save it up to get that Dooney Burke. I need you to save your money so that you can invest in your community. So I really enjoyed everyone. I love Ramon, Julian, Keith, Darshan, Miss Donna, you were awesome tonight, and all our investors. So again, thank you all, and just go to our website, come along with us. This is the only place where you're gonna get an opportunity to do it with us. Everybody else, you will have to do it on your own.
Okay, last but certainly not least, our illustrious secretary, Stacy.
Thank you. I won't say a lot. I just want to say thank you to all of you for being here. I am learning so much by being a part of this group, by being one of the co-founders. You know, one of the things about this real estate syndication that we wanted to do, we want to do the raise, we want to raise the money, we want everybody to make money. But the different thing about what we're doing, that C does stand for community. And we wanted to bring an educational component. A lot of times we invest our money in things and we never get to see the co-founders, and we never get to gather in the way that this community allows us to gather. I love hearing from our investors. Every time I hear from our investors, I get to hear more and more about how they believe in what we're doing, and how, you know, the buy-in that they have into what is really becoming a movement. And it just really warms my heart that we actually have an opportunity to come together and to build something together in our community. I love what Ramon Tookes said. He said, ownership without knowledge doesn't help us to keep what we owned. We have to learn, and we have to, you know, come together and learn more about what we're doing. I love what Yanina said about retail leakage. I never heard it put that way, but that's exactly what we're dealing with. And again, that's what we're doing. We're bringing an awareness to things that we're living with every day, that retail leakage. We live in these bedroom communities, and we have to go somewhere to spend our money. Investing in our community gives us an opportunity that we all have that ownership. It makes us proud of where we live. It makes us speak differently. It makes us more positive. And when we are more positive, and when we speak more positive about where we live, it makes other people want to invest. So I love this. I love you guys for coming and talking to us and educating us. And I just want to say good night. Please go to our website, consider investing with us. It's a movement, y'all. It's about making money, but more importantly, it's really about raising awareness and helping to close that gap. Thank you guys for coming.
Well, with that, again, thank you all for coming. Everybody should look in your inbox in the next couple of days for an email to just say thank you and to direct you to our website where you can get a recording of that. But without further ado, we just want to say good night to you all, and thank you so much for joining us. Everybody have a very, very happy rest of the night. Goodbye.
Good night.